We also want to look at, well, the economy. I spoke to Kent Troutman, who is an analyst at the Peterson Institute of International Economics, and I asked him if Hong Kong is perhaps too dependent on certain sectors, such as property and finance.
It's no secret that housing, finance, tourism are really, they drive the Hong Kong economy. But to a certain extent, every economy has its own competitive advantages. And certain sectors in every economy are going to drive growth. Consumption in the U.S., exports in Germany, investment in China, for better or for worse. And certain of those comparative advantages are advantageous. So for Hong Kong, they have a comparative advantage in finance. And so instead of trying to stifle the financial sector or stifle the tourism sector, it is better to develop tools, counter-cyclical tools, to deal with either overheated activity in those sectors or downfalls in demand for those sectors, and then just sort of clean up after, either try to prevent some incremental bubbles in those sectors, and have the ability and the tools to clean up when, say, the tourism sector suffers a lot or the housing sector falls by a large percentage. And actually, Hong Kong has been a path, has been breaking a lot of ground in this particular area of the economy, coming up with very innovative ways of controlling the housing market that China, and even now in London and the U.S. have been learning from Hong Kong in terms of how to control house prices. But no doubt, given that it is sleeping next to the elephant, as it were, incremental moves in China into the housing market and into the real estate and into the financial market in Hong Kong is going to generate a lot of volatility. And so, but they've shown that they have the ability to ameliorate those.
But let me play devil's advocate for just a moment here. So what that there's a lot of rich people with a lot of money? I mean, that's no secret. There's plenty of pretty glass buildings in Hong Kong and Ferraris and Porsches, but the vast majority of people, the average person, if you will, their quality of life arguably hasn't really changed a whole lot. If anything, perhaps taken a step back. And to the point that was made about prices going up, well, that's great if you're making more money.
That's right.
But if I'm not making more money, my quality of life is actually going down. And I don't know what a city can do, because you don't want to get rid of those sectors either.
A large part of the drive behind these protests are these young people, not necessarily the 1% of Hong Kong's.
I assure you, the 1% are not on the streets.
They're not on the streets, and it's the sort of that middle chunk of folks who are really feeling the pain from the historically high inflation over the past couple of years, lots of pressure from prices from China. So actually, the chief executive Long, he actually outlined in his first quarter speech, his policy speech, saying we need to increase social housing. We need to, do something about the minimum wage in Hong Kong, because, the average worker is suffering because of increased prices and falling real wages. So the real value of the money that you're getting in because of inflation, because the rise of prices in your houses is going down.
But let's talk about the short-term impact and then the long-term impact.
Yeah. So, we've seen a small movement in the exchange. Foreign exchange markets, but there's a lot of other things going on. But so far it's going to be difficult to judge what the ultimate impact of these protests is going to be. From where I sit, I could see a continued deterioration in retail sales, which have really been slumping since the first quarter of this year. That's always a danger. But putting this in context, there's been a lot of headwinds for the Hong Kong economy for several months now.
Now, with the growth of other big regional areas in China, Hong Kong's role is a bit uncertain. The future of Hong Kong as a competitive city and a competitive place where people invest and make things seemed to me very much in question.
The large increase in Hong Kong's growth over the last 20 years has been due to its special access to the Chinese market. And as China, or as Shanghai and Shenzhen and some of these other cities in China begin to develop their financial systems, and as China incrementally opens up its own financial system to outsiders, that's going to present some headwinds for Hong Kong. However, Hong Kong has a very well-developed financial system, and that just doesn't happen. You can't develop that overnight. That takes years and years of institutional development. And so that's going to stick around for a long time, and Hong Kong has been increasing its competitive advantage over, say, Singapore and Tokyo in the past 20 years.